Let me take you back to February 14th, 2016, Valentine's Day. A group of young men that I mentor and I were out on the town spreading kindness, one fast food drive-through at a time. You see, every year we would rent tuxedos in a limousine and we would pass out cards and chocolates and roses to ladies working at fast food restaurants. We would hit McDonald's, we would hit Wendy's, we would hit KFC, and it was finger licking good. You can see that we had so much fun, but these guys' acts of kindness landed them on the front page of the biggest newspaper in Oklahoma. And side note, if you have a chance to be on the front page, always and without exception, throw the bunny ears on your younger brother. This is Jeremiah and Cruz. We'd have so much fun. But I met these guys when I was working in schools on the east side of Oklahoma City. And I met them when they were probably 7 or 8 years old. They're now 19, 20, 21 years old. I've been to a lot of basketball games, birthday parties, cookouts, graduations, all of those things. These guys became like nephews to me. But if you're not from Oklahoma City, you might not be familiar with the east side. The east side is predominantly black, predominantly low income, and people who aren't from the east side typically classify it by all of its negative characteristics rather than the positive. But there's one thing that I picked up and I kind of saw doing Fast Food Valentines was something special happens when you get dressed up, right? Like the way you walk changes. The way you talk changes. The way you dance changes, right? This is us shutting Men's Warehouse down when we would go get our tuxes on, right? We had so much fun. But you feel like $1 million when you get dressed up, right? So in the back of that limousine on Valentine's Day, we would be making fake business deals. We'd be talking about making money. And then we'd jump out and pass out those roses. But that night, Demarion asked me a question I'd never forget. He looked at me with all the confidence in the world in his tuxedo, and he says, Tito, that's my nickname. He said, Tito, I want one of the good jobs when I get older. How do people get the good jobs? How do people become successful? And I froze. Luckily, Burger King saved me. We pulled up to our next spot. The guys grabbed their roses, chocolates, hopped out, and by the time we got back, conversation had changed. I dropped them off at their house, and that night I was sitting in the back of the limousine by myself, not thinking about how much fun we had, which we did, but I was thinking about the American dream. Because what Demarion asked me was about this idea that many of us in this room know about, social mobility. And that's the ability to move up the socioeconomic ladder, do better than what your parents did. And so that night, in the back of the limousine, Demarion's question became my question. How do people become successful? So I set out to find some answers, and I started to do some interviews. And so I want to share with you 3 interviews, and I want to see if you can spot the commonality in each one of these interviews, okay? But I interviewed people who kind of fall into the top 20% of income earners. These are not like, I didn't interview like super wealthy people. This is just mid-level managers, IT, superintendents, business owners, things of that nature. So here's the first interview. I interviewed Jackson. He said that he worked hard to learn filmmaking and then produced award-winning films. The second one, I interviewed Trevor, and he said that he quit his job and worked hard to build a successful business. And lastly, I interviewed Rebecca. Rebecca said that she worked hard to graduate from college and then got a good job at a PR firm. What's kind of the common thread here? Hard work. Hard work is definitely a key to success, and I think we talk about it all the time. But the most insightful and fascinating thick commonality that I found in all of these interviews was this one phrase that every single person said. And then. And then. So I want to go back and see if you guys caught it. Let's go back to Jackson's story. Jackson said that he worked hard to learn filmmaking and then produced an award-winning film. But what he doesn't tell when he tells his story of success was that his Aunt Rose bought him his first camera. He was gifted this resource that he was able to hone his skill and do those things to make it to that next level. What about Trevor? He says that he worked hard, he quit his job, he worked hard, started this very successful business. But what he doesn't say when he tells his story of success was that his in-laws owned some rental property and allowed him and his wife to live rent-free for a season while they're building their business. So he used that money to invest in the company and kind of just had that peace that he could lay his head down at night. He had somewhere to go, right? And then lastly, Rebecca. She said that she worked hard to graduate from college and then got a good job at the PR firm. But what she doesn't say is that the guy she was dating in college, his dad was a general manager at the PR firm and helped her get an internship, which turned into a full-time job. I call these and then moments. And then moments are people who unlock knowledge, resources, and opportunity. I had a chance to interview my grandpa before he passed away. He was one of my superheroes. So I drove to Illinois, and we sat on the back porch like normal, and he was telling me a story. He said, Tay, that's my other nickname. He said, Tay, I grew up poor in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Went to elementary school, and then I started a paper route. And then I worked at a grocery store. And then I got a good job at the Tokheim gas pump factory. And that paid me enough in the summers to be able to afford to go to college. And then I would go back in the summer, go to college, that whole thing, right? So I said, okay, Grandpa, tell me about how did you get your first bicycle? He said, well, now that I think about it, my uncle gave me my first bike. Okay, well, how did you get a job at the grocery store? He said, man, that was a know-nothing job. We barely got paid, but the owner of the grocery store lived in our neighborhood and would hire us neighborhood kids to put coupons on all the doors. Okay, well, I want to know about the good job, right? At the gas pump factory. How did you get that? Did you apply? Did you submit a resume? What was the process? He said, nope, didn't do either one of those. The next door neighbor was the hiring manager. And we didn't have enough money back then, so he would actually take me to and from work. So we finished up our conversation, and over the next few days, I started doing some research on my grandpa's story. And I found this document, and it was the 1940 census. And I found the name of my grandpa's next door neighbor, Ray Simmons. Ray Simmons, a name that I had never heard my grandpa say before. And I've heard my grandpa's story 1,000 times, right? We all hear grandparent stories. He'd never said that name before, and I don't think he was trying to be malicious or deceitful in the way that he told his story. I think it's the way that we kind of tell our stories of success. We leave out these seemingly insignificant details that are actually super important details. But there was a question that was kind of eating at me as I was doing these interviews and hearing these stories. I asked, what happens if you don't have these types of relationships? Like, what is next? And so I was doing some more research on my grandpa's story, and I found a document that was hard to read. Because of exclusionary housing practices, no black or brown folks could live in my grandpa's neighborhood. And in that moment, I was instantly transported to the back of that limousine. And I was thinking about Demarion's great-great-grandfather. If he happened to live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, no matter how hard he worked, he couldn't live next to Ray Simmons. That's what I call a locked opportunity. My grandpa had a key to unlock that opportunity, and that key had a name, Ray Simmons. You might be saying, Taylor, that was 70 years ago, dude. We don't do that anymore. Things have changed. But as I've been doing these interviews, I kept hearing echoes of the 1950s throughout these stories. So let me take you back to Rebecca's story, the one who got a job at that PR firm. Well, later in that story, she said, I went out to this intern lunch. There were 10 of us interns, and we were sitting at the table, and the girl next to me slipped up. And she said that her dad worked with Brandon, and that's how she got here. And then another guy shared, well, I went to school with Catherine, and that's how I'm here. All 10 interns went around and shared a similar story. They had a relationship. They knew someone at that PR firm to help unlock that door. That was a locked opportunity if you didn't know somebody. What's interesting is she's now at her third PR firm. She's been in her career has developed, and she said, you know what? Now that I think about it, I have ties back to my first internship that I did that got me to this job. And what I've been seeing in these interviews is that and then moments tend to compound. They tend to like stack and expand for people. So I want you to just take a moment at your table, and I want you to think of a name. I want you to think of a name of one of your and then moments, like their name and how they've impacted you. We're just gonna take like 5 seconds, let you think about it. You can type it in your phone. It might be a coach who saw potential in you and encouraged you to keep going when you wanted to quit. It might have been a mentor who shared about a career field that you didn't even know existed. It might be an aunt who took you out of state for the first time. It might even be your parents who helped you get your first car that allowed you to get your first job. So I want you to just kind of sit and think about that. I've reached out to my and then moments and sending thank you texts or handwritten cards. It's fun to reflect on those people who have impacted my life. There's a few that are in this room even right now. But hearing people's stories of success revealed that opportunity is unlocked through relationships. But here's the reality. Everyone faces these locked doors. I face them, you face them, the person next to you faces these locked doors. But what I've found is it's not really about the locked doors. It's how many keys you have to get through those doors. And in the work that we all do, it's evident that people are born with drastically different amounts of keys. And I realized this when I moved to the east side of Oklahoma City about 10, 15 years ago, and I saw kids like Demarion and how few keys they had in their pocket compared to the keys that I had in my pocket. I saw myself in Demarion, a fun, hardworking kid. I just didn't see the connections that he had to the good opportunities, to the good job. I want to be successful. I didn't see those connections. There's a big study that came out by a Harvard economist named Raj Chetty on this idea of economic connectedness. And I won't bore you with any of the stats or anything, but the baseline is that the more connections that low-income people have with higher-income people, the higher rate of mobility. Let me just rephrase this really easy for the room. As a society, we do better when we're connected. We do better when we're connected. But what's disheartening is there's still a profound amount of data that says that we live very separate lives. Let me put it another way. The people who have lots of keys live around and work with people with lots of keys, and people with few keys live around and work with people with few keys. Don't make me emotional. I cry every time I give this talk. Stop. You guys hear it, it's right here. What brings me hope is that I'm in a room full of people who are dedicated to unlocking opportunities for others. That's you guys. I needed that clap, thank you. So imagine if, with me for a second, Oklahomans' stories of success sounded something like this. And then I met Mallory Testa, who was my TANF family coach, who helped me find transportation so I could get to vocational school. Where's Mallory at? She's over here. We see you, Mallory. Imagine if people's stories of success sounded like this. And then I met James Dura on the DHS mobile unit, and he helped me get food benefits that my family needed. Where's James at? Thank you, sir. And what if stories of success sounded like, and then I met Anika Starling, who connected me to a teen parent coordinator who then helped me graduate from high school while learning to be a mom. Anika, where are you at? Thank you. Y'all are awesome. Mallory, James, Anika represent all of us in the work that we're doing. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, though. There's days you're going to get applause like this. You're going to stand up. And then there's days that are going to be really tough. And you guys know that, right? Days you don't feel like doing it. Days when the phone won't stop ringing and you feel like your clients are falling through the cracks. Days that you wish email wasn't even invented because it's a constant fire. And days you sit in your car and you just cry because you've heard a story that day. And I think we all could think of somebody who's in that similar situation. I got this, but we know that our work matters. I got this special key made as a reminder to myself. And on the front of it, it says, "and then moments." And then on the back, I don't know if you guys have rented an apartment or have an office key or something like that. It says, "do not duplicate" on those keys, right? For some reason, they don't want all my friends having a key to my apartment. But backside of this key, it says, "duplicate often." Because I'm trying to remind myself to duplicate these and then moments. And what's really fun is today at the end of the session, you guys will each get a key to put on your keychain or leave at your desk just as a reminder to continue to do the work of unlocking opportunities for others. So that's really fun. Really quick before I wrap up, I get asked a lot about Demarion. And Demarion is here today, the young man from Fast Food Valentine's. Yeah. No, you guys won't see him. You won't see him because he's backstage learning about how to put on a production of this size, right? We're giving practice reps, right? He's back there watching the teleprompter, watching the camera 3, camera 4. They're talking on headsets and stuff. And he's back there. When he walked in, this was his first big training like this. And he's like, oh my goodness. And now he's backstage. He's working at Costco as a customer support rep. And he is phenomenal. He's got his eyes set on being a manager at Costco. And so if you, bruh. Love you, dude. Good job. That's not fair. They didn't tell me that. These backstage people are tricky. All I have to say is that we know that poverty is a complex problem. And it's going to take all of us to work together with a complex solution that will take all of us working together. So, in conclusion, imagine if Oklahoma became an and then moment state. That regardless of what zip code you were born into, or how many keys you do or don't have in your pockets, you have a network of caring people and organizations who are dedicated to your success and unlocking opportunities. Thank you.